Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin O'Powers. I'm also the owner, operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events. And I want to welcome you to our program today. So, if you are familiar with what we do here, is I take an individual film, and what I like to do is bring on a special guest, and we kind of critique, analyze, gently have a good conversation about that individual film, so that you, as our audience and listeners, can get a full outlook on whatever the film it is that we were talking about. Now, because we love the horror genre, that film can include a multitude of different decades, as well as subgenres of the horror main genre, because we like to delve deep into a lot of different types of areas that, some of those other podcasts don't normally do. That being said, what we have been doing over the course of this month is going through a lot of foreign language films. And before I get to the title of today's program, I would like to tell you or introduce my host for today. And he's someone who has done so many great conversations on the program. And I know you already know who he is. And I would like to thank you, Dave Watkins, for joining us on the program again.
Good to be back. So this is a foreign language film, but it's also a found footage film. I wasn't sure if this was found footage month or foreign movie month. I wasn't sure. But I guess it covers both.
It covers both, but we don't have any ideals of doing another found footage film, because from some of our readers, they know what we're doing is we're continuously evolving our show to take into effect all these great found footage films, because we are producing a found footage book for later in the year. Instead, this one will be part of our foreign language film month, and it's a great one to add there because it is because it's found footage film and you do have to read the subtitles. I hope that it does not take away from your enjoyment of the film. And that film is the very first Record from 2007, or Rec. I know there are some people out there who want to call it Rec. I have no idea. It is fucking Record. Just call it Record.
Yeah, I've been calling it Rec, man. I like Record better though. It sounds better because it's like you say Rec, and it sounds like it could start with a W or something,
I've never understood why so many people call it Rec. Yes, it may just be spelled REC, but we all know what that means. It's record.
Yeah. Right.
It's not record. It's not rec.
Yeah.
Record. Just call it Record. So that's what I've always called it. And I am actually a huge fan of this film. And I saw it really early. Because I'm a fan of the filmmakers, and I was a fan of found footage films. But before I get to that, I would like to hear from you, Dave. When did you first come into contact with this film, and what were your first impressions of it?
So I should point out before answering that this is a Spanish language film. So
oh yeah,
just so everyone knows what it is, it's Spanish. But I saw the American remake of this first, called Quarantine, which is a lot slicker version of the film. It has Jennifer Carpenter in it from Dexter, and it's I saw that in the theater, and it was I was very impressed with it. I was quite it's quite like, it is a found footage film, but this is one of the better of the found footage films. I think it probably second best in my opinion. A found footage film, it's probably the best as far as in a way it covers a realistic amount of. For the most part, it is realistic that they keep recording, kinda, and just the pacing is really good. But as far as the American version and this remake are very similar. The American version and this original version are very similar, except for the ending's a little different. But this is there's very similar. There's hardly any difference. Since I saw the other one first, I kind of lean towards that one. But upon watching this one, I do like the main actress. So, but I really think it's one of those that the found footage films that really works, and it is scary, and it also has quite an intense pacing in it.
So I actually saw this in the theater when it originally came out, because I was familiar with the director. And I'm
in 2007 is when it came out.
Yeah, oh my God, I didn't say the year. No way did I say the year. And the thing is, I don't know his. I'm probably. I hate when I butcher people's names.
Oh, you're gonna butcher this thing.
I think it's Jaime Bala. Baljuelo. I don't see. I don't know his fucking name. And Paco Plaza. Both do this movie, and I was familiar because of their film The Nameless. From what I can't remember. I think I read stuff about that one in Fangoria because that was my like my number one go to magazine for knowing everything about horror. And I heard about Record from that. I heard about The Nameless, which I fucking love. One day we're gonna have to talk about that film on this.
What did you say? Was that what
The
was the name of that movie?
Nameless. The
The
name.
Nameless, Name List. Yeah,
Name
I've never heard of
less.
that.
The name
What?
less. The name
Nameless.
less.
Okay.
I've seen that and I read about that, and then of course, the other movie that I seen was part of a television series. I had to look up the actual name of the movie, To Let, but that was part of like a six-part little movie thing that they did. And Record was one of these films that came up, and it was hugely talked about before it actually was released here. And I saw it in the art house theater. So I did not I
Okay.
don't know if it had a big theatrical release. I don't think it did. I saw it in
I don't think it. Yeah, I don't think it did in the U.S. I think it got a lot more attention after the U.S. remake. I think.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think after that point it was kind of like the Ring, where
Yeah.
the original Ring, in the U.S. most people weren't aware of it until after the American remake.
Yeah. And I saw Ringu at the theater as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One of the great things about having art house theaters here in Atlanta, Georgia, I get to see a lot of these foreign films in the art house theaters back in the day, and I used to also see them in my college campus theater. Would get all these small independent films. I see a lot of them there as well, and that's where I saw a lot of these films because I love Spanish language films, even though I don't speak Spanish. I wish I did, but I don't speak it, and but I love some of the films that they produced out of there. And this one was one that I thought was way better than I was expecting it to be because I had very low, not just I didn't have low expectations. I had low ideas of what to expect. Because the found footage genre was, I think it was still in its like really raw infancy because people still were not experimenting with it as much as they could have. And with this film, because you don't get no beginning titles or anything like that, it literally is just you're seeing the newspaper, not newspaper, but the TV programmer, Angela, and her cameraman Pablo are just out there recording their show. And it starts like that. It's just no titles, no nothing. It just starts like that. And
Yeah.
it's raw. And that's what I loved about the film when I saw it in the theater. And I do remember the theater was not very, like, it didn't have a shit ton of people. The theater I went to see this, they never had a whole lot of people go there. That was kind of like the thing. You'd see like 10, 15 people, 25 people at the most of the time, unless it was a big movie. So I could enjoy the film, and I just like to see people jump and scare and all that type of shit. And this movie kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time, and I became a huge fan of this whole franchise because of this first film. Now I love the American version too, Quarantine. I kind of thought they went safe with the explanation of what's going on in the American version, but you're
Yeah.
right. They almost produce a shot for shot film between the two because why? You don't have to improve on a thing that's already perfect, pretty much.
Well, and the American one is like much more polished than this one. This one looks a lot more raw, which
Yeah, it's
which
raw.
may go in the favor of this one. But that ending, which we'll talk about later, but I will say that I agree with what they did with the American version, changing the ending. Just because it really works really good in the sequels to this, because it really in the Spanish language one it helps the sequels, but the American version wanted to be more of a self-contained one, even though they eventually did do a sequel. But it does it is kind of out of left field, which we'll talk about later. But to me, it's a little out of left field, and I didn't quite understand it the first time I saw it. I understand it more after seeing the sequels
Mhm.
about where they're going with it, but. And all of it makes more sense after some of the sequels. But if you just watch this one and you see the ending of it, it's a little baffling, especially if you're expecting the ending to the American version.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, you know what? You could. Yeah, I didn't think about that. You absolutely right. If you saw the American version first, then saw this one, I could see that. I could see that.
Yeah. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I think that I don't necessarily disagree with the ending. I just think they were smart doing what they did with the American version to kind of streamline it, to dumb down it for the dumb American audiences.
Well,
So-
well, that's what happens normally when they translate a foreign language horror film to the American audience. They do mostly dumb it down. There's a lot of complicated and complex ideals, even from the Ringu to the Ring version, that they just cut out because it would make it much more simpler for
Yeah,
American audiences to grasp. And in regards to both The Quarantine and The Ring, they were both extremely successful movies.
right.
So,
And it's almost like I don't. I mean, almost like in this, it is kind of setting up more for potential franchise because it's kind of laying like a different type of track that's going to be explored later in the sequels. So it's kind of gives this kind of idea that is explored later, but unlike the American version, it's very straightforward. It's just a contagion that from like it was actually very similar to the COVID thing where it was like a lab experiment and then someone stole the virus and then it ended up in the apartment. But that's not how it happens here. It does seem that way though. If you've seen the American version, you're watching this, it does seem like that is the explanation until the end of it.
well, also keep in mind that when the original Quarantine came out, zombie movies were also huge too, and infectious disease
Yeah.
movies. So they're playing that up as well. People who love those type of movies would definitely go see Quarantine, as I did, and many other people I'm sure did. So
Right. I mean, yeah, I saw, yeah, the first time I saw this one, I got this the Scream Factory set that has all four of the movies in it, and I really think what's cool about this one, like we talk about the rawness, but it also I do like this actress who plays the main character. The main character is Angela Vidal. I like the way that she's a reporter for like I guess like a lower end television show. She's doing like a segment called While You Were Sleeping, and they're following these fires. The first shot you see of her is that she's trying to say her name, and they do several takes of her just trying to do the introduction, and it's just kind of. But her character is somewhat very is very determined, like to. I guess she's kind of bored with it a little bit, but she's just trying to be goofy and have a good time. And she's a little disrespectful type of person to the firemen, and she tries to be like she put on the fireman clothes and be like, "Look, I'm a fireman," And she seems like she even like there's this one fireman. She's like, "We'll go ahead and shoot this, but this guy looks like he's not going to be pretty boring. We may end up cutting it later." She says that to the cameraman. She's kind of got this kind of attitude, which is funny for the character, and it's funny that that type of attitude goes pretty far into it and until things really hit the fan and then her demeanor changes and she becomes very panicky and desperate to almost get out, but she does seem like even though her character is somewhat unlikable, I do like the energy that the actress puts into it.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. I didn't find her unlikable, but I guess when you think about some of the stuff that she does, I do think that she is a kind of like this ambitious TV reporter who wants to be on something other than While You're Asleep television program where like the firemen actually make a comment, so if it's called While You're Asleep, isn't anyone watching it? Who's
Yeah,
watching it?
yeah.
uh
Yeah, yeah. There's humor though. There's a humor in this like that's pretty predominant, especially in the first part of the
yeah.
film. Even later on, I mean, it's like there is like a sense of dark humor. I don't necessarily think that she's unlikable. I think she's likable because of what the actress does and the energy she puts into the character. But I think she does some very unlikable things that, depending on how it could have been played, it could have been significantly more unlikable. Like when things start to get at one point, there's a point in time when it seems like they should be turning the camera off, and she tells the cameraman, "Keep shooting, or
Keeps
I'm gonna kill you," or something. Like, obviously, she's not gonna kill him, but that makes you think. The question in these found footage films is like, why are they still recording? That's the question that that's plagues a lot of these. And a lot of times it's not satisfying. I think it mostly works in this one because the main character, or not the main character, the Pablo character is a cameraman,
Hmm.
and he does seem to take it pretty serious, even though she does, as a script thing, threaten to kill him, which is kind of might be some dark humor injected into the script. But he's not really afraid of her, you know. He's not doesn't think she's actually gonna hurt him. He probably himself wants to keep recording because at one point he actually follows the action without her
Yeah.
and goes into the room. Like I think you don't get a lot from him, but just because of the actions, like that type of action, him following the action, going and keeping recording, he seems like he really wants to cover what's being seen.
Hmm.
And there's a couple of times really jarringly so when like someone all of a sudden out of nowhere someone asks for help and you're thinking Angela's could go over there and help the guy, but instead the guy puts down the camera and goes and helps him and you've like almost forgotten the camera's a character. You
Yeah.
forgot, you know, at that point it's like you've forgotten that it's a character. It's like really surprising.
But yeah, because we don't really see who Pablo is in the film. He's behind the camera pretty much the entire film, I believe, except for maybe one instance.
Well, he's out a few times, but you don't see his face
You
very
don't
good.
see his
There's
face.
several times where the camera's set
Yeah.
down and you see part of his body. He does help a couple of times
Yeah.
in
Which
certain
is odd
instances.
because most of the modern day found footage films always make sure that the audience gets to see who's behind the camera at some point. I thought that was
Yeah.
very interesting when I did the rewatch on this. I was like, for me, having seen this movie several times, I just hadn't noticed it because for me the camera is a character and that's Pablo. And
Yeah,
so
but it's like you forget though that the person there's a person behind that camera. It's like, you know, you forget that he can come out and help when he should be helping in some instances. Yes.
yeah, I do like the concept though that because I think they set it up real well with Angela's character. Like in my opinion, they set up real well that she's ambitious, and that's why she does what she does because she sees something unfolding here, and it could be a big story, and it becomes even a bigger story when they all get quarantined within the building from the outside,
Yeah.
and like it becomes a testament for her to keep recording to have a record of what's going on. Um,
Yeah, and that's a really brilliant thing that they do to
yeah.
make it natural that they keep recording.
Mhm.
This is one of the few that I've seen that do it so good that you don't really ever rarely question it. You rarely question that they shouldn't be recording. There's maybe a few times, but most of the time it's fine. And that part where they get quarantined in, that's when her character really changes. That's the first time you see her. Like before that, everything's a game to her. Everything is like, we got to get this footage. Everything's
Yeah.
just fun and games. And that point, like something clicks in her. She panics. She sees that they're in true danger. They're being quarantined inside of a place, and she's like frantically trying to find a way out, which they can't because everywhere they go, they're sealing off parts of the building.
So before we get into that, I do want you mentioned something about her character because she's before we get to the tenement building. There are scenes at the firehouse where she's obviously bored and she's out there sneaking up. Her and Pablo are sneaking up on the sleeping firemen, and then she's out there playing basketball with the firemen, all because she doesn't think that they have enough good footage to be useful because they're waiting on a call to happen. And when the call does happen, she's like, "Oh my God, finally something's gonna happen." And that
Yeah,
kind of goes into her character because that first, I think 15, 20 minutes of us watching the mundane aspects of the firefighters, is, we are just as kind of bored as she is of watching it here. We're waiting for that action to take place. And when it does, we're like her, we're jumping into the fire truck wanting to know what the hell's going on. Uh
yeah. And it's funny, like her. I mean, it's kind of like again, that got that sense of humor, even though she's really bored and acting like, acting like the way that she's acting is funny, and that's what the audience is kind of feeling too. One of the two, there's two firemen that she ends up going with that end up in this location, and it's funny because they don't really. There's the one of them, like, Manu, I think is his name,
Manu,
but Manu, I guess, yeah, Manu sounds right, but
and
he,
Pablo. Not
yeah,
Pablo, Alex.
Alex, yeah. But that one is in it a lot,
Mhm.
but he doesn't seem, they don't make a big deal out of him.
No.
Even earlier on, he seems, I mean, that's the odd thing about it is he's second build, but he doesn't seem like he doesn't have like any. Especially like later on, he has some character moments in the action, but he never like talks that much,
Hmm.
or rarely talks that much until all he is action. Like when action happens, he's there to do it, but he doesn't necessarily have like long conversations or even do camera interviews. It almost seems as a writer, you would think it'd be really it's really hard not to want to make that character bigger at the beginning and make more of an impression with that character that you know who's going to kind of become somewhat of a hero later on. But they really were restrained. They really restrained themselves on the writing in an interesting way by not making him like that out front of the camera earlier on and just really keeping him like almost background unless he was doing something
Yeah.
like heroic.
I think that works for the film's favor though, because in reality, she gets the interview with the main, I guess the main chief of the firehouse, who shows her around, lets her get into the fire outfit, takes her to actually go meet Manu and Alex when they're eating, stuff like that, and then she's really just waiting around to see if anything happens. And the thing about Alex and Manu is that they act like you would expect firemen to be acting throughout the film. I think if she interviewed them like an interview to kind of get their background and
Yeah,
their story, I think it would have been false. I think it would have ring as
yeah.
false, kind of pretentious, and a bunch of other stuff that I'm not gonna say because it wouldn't ring as realistic to me.
Yeah, I agree. It comes off very natural, but there is almost I just can't. It's funny because if you think about like script, like a script writer and they're thinking, what if this Manu character was a love interest character? Like, they didn't do it, but that is something that would normally happen in an action horror film. Like that character would be
Yeah.
the love interest, and he would be the guy that she's like kind of flirting with by mistake earlier on, and then but they intentionally avoid doing that, which makes it more natural.
Yeah.
You never really see her flirting with anybody, really.
This is a job. And I like that aspect. It's a job for all of them. It's a job for the police officers that are in the building with them. It's a job for the firemen in the building, and it's a job for the Angela and Pablo who are doing it for the show. I think, and this I could be wrong about this, but I think that kind of the ideal behind the whole film as a whole is that you're seeing all these normal people in their day-to-day operation, the people in the tenement, the people who are supposed to be your your first aid help, all normal people. This incident is happening to normal people, and it is a very unnormal, unnatural incident that happens with the quarantine. And and be frank, it could be normal. This is what normal people would react to until we figure out at the very end the very supernatural element that is causing all this shit. Um, you know, we get the explanation of what's going on and why it's quarantine, and all that, but we also get the reason for why all this is happening to begin with. Um, but I don't want to mention that just yet until we get around to
Yeah,
that part.
but I think the actress is really cute, and but I think the way that she acts is maybe a turnoff to people, or these people are trying for the most part to be because no one ever and it's cool that they don't. It seems more natural. But it may seem a little unnatural. But given the circumstances, like no, once they get into the building, everything just kind of hits the fan right away. But it's like never like it doesn't seem like anybody's really they really respect her. Maybe like these particular people they're just trying to show like a respect for women and not try to avoid any type of sexist type of behavior because there's none in the film as far as I could tell. But
No,
like none of the characters ever try to like flirt with her or hit on her or say anything about her being a girl or anything, you know?
no, I like that. I sometimes, unless that's a part of the plot or theme of the movie, I think some of that stuff gets added that doesn't need to be there. And like I said earlier, I like the rawness of this film. It makes me feel like I'm watching something that's more real instead of something that's fabricated, especially in a film that's designed to be a found footage film to begin with. So,
Right. They
oh,
yeah, so the when they finally they go there, they get in the fire truck and then they go there and when they get into the building, it's like they go in, and then the cops. There's a few cops there, and they're like, everyone's questioning why are the cameras here, and there's like one cop in particular that keeps like being very like much against the camera, but they keep following him anyway. And they go up to, was it the landlady's room? That's who that is, right? The first lady
They
that it
don't say
shows.
it's the land. It's just an elderly woman.
Yeah.
But what happens is that some of the tenements heard a huge scream from that woman's apartment, and they've all gathered. Some of the tenements have called the cops, and they've all gathered at the very like the lobby area of this tenement building at the very bottom of the steps. And the cops are there. Like when the fireman and Angela arrive, the cops are already there, but they haven't gone into the elderly woman's room yet. So when when the firemen do get there, the cops, firemen all decide to go up to this elderly woman's room, thinking that she may have fell, she may have hurt herself, something like that. And it's very fast paced. This is what I like about this film. This film starts once it's at the tenement building, and it never stops. It almost seems like this. And it could be, I have to rewatch it again, but I think for the most part, this movie is actually like recorded in real time once they hit the tenement building. I think it stops
Yeah.
a couple times.
Yeah. There's a few times where it stops,
Yeah, it
but
stops a couple
yeah,
times, but it almost feels like it's a continuous thing. You don't
yeah.
really time passes really fast once they enter the actual tenement building.
Well, well, there is a segment which actually helps the pacing a lot after the after they get quarantined in there and everything kind of settles for a little bit, where Pablo and Angela take everybody who's quarantined with them, and they do single interviews with each of the people. It kind of helps develop their characters a little bit, and it kind of sets up kind of an explanation for later on. But it is a downtime moment, which is much needed, because what happens once they get into the building until after until after they get quarantined, and then they basically accept that until from that moment it is relentless until that happens, and then it slows down for maybe 15 minutes, and then it after that it goes like 100 miles an hour until the end of the film. So it's
Yeah, and it is a short movie too, by the way. So it goes by really fucking fast. But it's very interesting that the way it starts off when this in this elderly woman's apartment, because it's very dark, and I love the fact that this that the building actually loses lights for a couple times, loses power a couple times, and there are a lot of dark areas throughout this entire film. So that allows the
yeah,
characters not to be able to see everything clearly. Another reason why it's good that they have the camera there. Obviously, they see the elderly woman who's not fallen, or is standing up at the very end of her apartment when the police are inside the apartment, when the firemen are inside the apartment, and when Angela and Pablo are inside the apartment. I think that's all that's in the apartment at this point. But they see the elderly woman, but she's just kind of standing there, and so they go closer and closer to see what's wrong with her, because they all know something happened. They heard the scream, and she's covered in blood. Like they see her, she's covered in blood.
yeah,
Uh, and
yeah.
then
It's pretty creepy looking too, the way that she looks.
yeah,
Yeah,
because we don't know exactly what happened. That's the thing.
right.
We don't always know what happens to a lot of the stuff that happens in this movie. But the writers and directors do, because I guarantee you, like you think, they had a bigger story in mind. This was just a small part before it became hugely successful, and then in the second, third, and the fourth film. Um, but with this one, because of the dark areas, you're just seeing this elderly woman, and they can't see her so well, so they don't know anything's wrong with her per se just by looking at her. And then I'm just gonna call him, because I don't remember if they gave him a name. The chief the chief
Yeah,
police officer is the first one to go up to her, trying to help her and see what's wrong with her. And of course, she immediately just attacks him like a feral animal, which is actually a good definition of what she acts like. Um,
right. Yeah, like
uh,
almost like like a rabid sort of
yeah,
situations. That's kind of what that's the way it is in the second. I mean, in the
14.
American remake too.
Yeah.
But it does seem that way when that happens, and then she just like bites into that dude's neck, and blood going everywhere. It's pretty jarring when it happens.
Yeah.
You kind of expect it a little bit, but when it happens, and it happens so the sound design is really cool too when stuff like that happens. It's really really kind of it sets the tone, and it's just like holy shit, she just like attacked the dude, and there's blood, and so then they shoot her, and you think she's dead at that point, but then they get the cop out of the room, they bring him downstairs. But that's when the part it's always like the part that happens right after that has always been like holy shit to me when they go all the way down the stairs, they bring him downstairs, and suddenly one of the two firemen, Alex, like falls down from the stairwell and lands and splats on the ground. Just
Yeah.
that part's like holy. And then that part to me has always been the most shocking part when that happens.
Well, because we're not expecting that. We don't know exactly what happened to him. Once everyone else dragged the one wounded police officer down the steps, and then of course that's really a good motivator for the Manu character, because not only is a police officer down, but also his fellow coworker is also down. He says he's not dead, but although he probably should be, but he's still barely breathing, because in their eyes they're two wounded people here in this place. And of course that's when they try and exit the tenement building, the housing apartments, and of course they can't because they've been locked in from the outside world, which is, jarring at first, because now they don't know what the hell's going on. They don't.
Yeah.
I mean, they're locked inside. They're locked inside, and the first thing Manu and the other police officer wants to do is try and find an alternative exit. So they start looking for an alternative exit of the building. We are made aware of the workshop, which is next to this building, which plays an important part later on in the film. But we don't go into the workshop first thing off. But before I forget, at the same time, one of the tenements in the lobby that we're waiting on is the little girl named Jennifer. I don't think they really mention her mother's name, but Jennifer, her mother, are down there waiting because Jennifer is sick. And
Wait, is it Clara? Clara is the young girl, right? And Jennifer's the mom, I think.
I thought Jennifer was the little girl.
Yeah, maybe I may have it backwards on here. You probably.
I mean,
but
I
there's a little girl that has a dog. She has a dog. Pretty important character.
Yeah. She has a dog, and her mother seems to think that she has tonsillitis, and the father's out in the world trying to get stuff for tonsillitis. And that's about all we learned from these tenants this early in the film. And we learned about them because it's on purpose. The filmmakers are like, this is going to be an important aspect of the film later on, because we don't get to know any of the other tenants that we see. We see several of them down there because they've all kind of gathered down there in the lobby based on what they heard, the screams and everything, and the police showing up. So we see them, but we don't get to know them until they do the interviews. So we get to know some of them a little bit. And that's important to recognize there.
It is Jennifer is the daughter.
Okay.
It says Maria is, I guess, the mom, when Mari or something like that. But something I wanted to point out that happens weird with the camera, and this is something I do want to point out something with the found footage idea is like the question is like who found this footage, who's looking at it, and there is like no answer to that within this movie, but that's one thing. But the second thing that happens that's weird is there's a moment when the old lady's shot. And then Angela comes up to Pablo and she's like, dude, you get that shot. We want to look at it. And it actually shows the camera reverse and then replay it. But like, who's recording that? Who's recording it, reversing and replaying? Because that's definitely a cheat. And I'm not sure why they even do that.
Oh God, there's a movie that does this. Funny Games. Funny Games does the same thing. I had to think of it for a second there. Have you seen Funny Games?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh shit!
I've gotten familiar with it though. I've heard of it before.
Oh, so if you've not seen Funny Games and you don't want to know the cheat that it does, then don't listen to what I'm about to say, because I saw these things very similar, and what happens in there is if you've seen Funny Games, and Funny Games, the original, I had to look at the date for the original, came
Are
out
you saying fun and games, or is it funny
Funny
games?
Games.
Funny
Funny
games.
Games.
Okay, yeah, that's what.
Uh,
Yeah.
Funny Games. The original came out in 97, but the remake came out in 2007, the same year as this.
Okay.
They use the same technique where you're watching the film and the killers accidentally get killed and they rewind the tape themselves. And although there's no tape, they rewind the film themselves so that they are no longer killed. It's a
Yeah.
very for some reason it's jarring because like what the fuck are we watching? This just came out of nowhere. This
Yeah.
I think this is the only found footage film that has ever we ever see the rewind of the footage and then rewatch it, play it back again.
But I
That
mean, yeah. I mean, it makes sense that the character would want to re-see it, but like, it doesn't make sense that we're seeing
the
it.
audience is seeing it.
But most, I mean, it's most people you wouldn't think about it. You know, you just wouldn't think about it because you don't may not be thinking about how a camera actually works because it doesn't record when you rewind back and play again. So it's just like what there's really no point to that either. Yeah, I don't. Other than I mean, it could have been just like she comes up to him and it's like, hey. Do we get it? And he'd be like, okay, let's play it back. And then you don't have to see it really played back. I mean, they gain like maybe 20 or 30 seconds at the most of screen time out of it, you know?
I think that, and I wanted to bring that the whole sequence up too. I think that's the only sequence in the whole film that kind of breaks with the aesthetic of a found footage film or a film in like when it happens in Funny Games. It's also really weird when it happens there too because it's jarring.
But that sounds, yeah. No, that sounds cool though. What you said about that, they actually use that as part of the plot in
Yeah.
funny games because you said that it actually does reverse it and they don't get killed, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of
So
cool.
it's a kind of cheat that the killers actually do that. It's like whoa,
Yeah.
let's stop this, and then yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of like a Mel Brooks moment or something like that, you know. But
Yeah,
but
but
this,
since you've
this
never
is
seen the film,
yeah.
it's very fucking dark.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, so it's a horror film. It's a
Yeah.
very dark thriller / horror film, and this one it does seem odd. It does seem a little odd. And don't get me wrong, it's always that is always the one sequence in this film that kind of makes you stop and takes you out of the found footage ideal, its aesthetics that the genre kind of holds itself to. I think it for me as an audience member, and when I saw it originally in the theater, it worked for me. But I also wasn't integrated into that whole found footage aesthetics at the time this came out. This is 2007. It's almost been what 20
Yeah.
years almost.
Well, yeah, but honestly, the first time I saw it, I didn't think twice about it. It was just like when I was watching it this time,
Yeah.
it just suddenly hit me that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
So, but it's not that it's a big deal, but it just I don't understand why it is the way that it is, why they decided to do that, and it was like really the only time they did a cheat which didn't make most people don't think twice about it. I definitely didn't think twice about it the first time I saw it.
No, I didn't either. Like I said, I only recently when we rewatched the film for the podcast did I actually notice it. And I never really cared much about that kind of keeping with the aesthetics because I've seen so many found footage films that break much more fundamental aesthetics of the
Oh
genre
yeah.
than that.
Yeah, I mean like I said, this one is for the most part it makes sense. Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes sense that what they're doing with the camera, and they even use the camera, which they do in other found footage films too. They use the camera in some parts as a tool that helps them in some of the scenes.
Mhm. Yeah. And then what am I thinking? Moving past that whole sequence there because we stopped to examine the film quality of the movie.
Right. Yeah. Well, before like we get into this segment that I was talking about earlier, where you have the interviews, which I got a few notes on the interviews, but there's a couple of sequences where the one cop who doesn't want them filming suddenly pulls out a gun and tells everybody to stop talking. He's kind of freaking out a little bit.
Mhm.
The scene works. It's like eventually the fireman talks him down and gets him to put down the gun, but it's kind of like he's freaking out that they're quarantined in there and they can't leave, and he's he doesn't know what's going on with the camera. He doesn't want him recording, but then it's sort of like they eventually were able to talk some sense into him and say we need to record this because of what they're doing out there.
Mhm.
But what did you think about him suddenly pulling the gun out and pointing it at the firemen and the camera and stuff?
My impressions of him is that he was either he could have been newer to the job than the chief police officer who was killed, and he's under a lot of pressure to maintain order. And what's happening around him is everything that's not order. It's chaos, and he doesn't understand what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on, and he's trying to maintain his authority as the highest authority figure within the building. He can't control what was outside the building, but he thinks he can control what's inside the building. And the idea of Angela and Pablo recording stuff is like they're going over their authority, and so he acts like that towards them because he can't control them. The fireman is like a service person, just like he is, and so I think that for him as a cop, he could see the fireman on the same level as him. And
Well, I think a lot of times, yeah, right. I think a lot of times in a film, you see somebody pull a gun out and point it at somebody, but in real life, if you're going to pull a gun, not that I've done it before, but if you pull a gun out, it's almost like you have to be ready to use it, and B it's like have a end for what you hope to happen from pulling the gun out. He doesn't seem like he does have a plan for it. Because say if you pull a gun out and you point it at somebody, it they don't do what you want them to do, or you don't shoot them, and then they could take the gun from you. But I think he's just panicking
yeah,
over what's going on. But it does seem like a movie moment a little bit more than some of the other things that happen.
oh, right, oh. Well, the
But
thing is that it does get everyone calmed down for the initial whole thing with the quarantine. Um, but yes, I think once that happens and once his superior is killed, I think that cop is just on edge the entire rest of the movie. Um, you
but
know,
I mean, you make a good point too that they're not listening to him, and the
no.
only thing he could think to do to reassert any type of control is to pull the gun out,
Mhm.
and it doesn't work. He ends up having to put the gun away without using it, and he ends up looking really weak after that for really the rest of the film. He's already weak to begin with, but it
Yeah,
makes him even more weak that he has to pull the gun out to try to get everybody to stop talking.
yeah, I agree with you on that. But
It's
it's interesting because instead of having a very strong police and cop presence, you have a very weak police cop presence, and your fireman Manu is more the stronger presence. Hence why Angela and Pablo follow him for most of the movie. You know,
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know,
Yeah, yeah. The original cop that got bit on the neck was probably would have been a fine leader, but the cop who becomes in charge after that is
yeah,
not the person to follow. So after that, that's when the slowdown happens in the script when there's two victims. There's the original police guy and the other fire guy who are sitting on a table, and they're kind of recording it, and you see for the first time the white eyes. Like one of the two, I think the fireman has like white eye. His eyes are turning white. Um, and then they start to interview people. So they interview the little girl. You find out some important information about the dog, and she had a sick dog that got dad brought it to the vet, and so that's a plot thing. That's what brings some other people later. The fact that they dealt with a dog, and then it's hilarious. There's this one guy. He's kind of an older guy, but he starts like it's like a funny moment. He's like talking about. He says he starts saying that he thinks that it could be the Chinese because they eat raw fish. He's like talking about he's talking about the contagion. He's like it's probably the Chinese because there's some Chinese people in there. He's like it's probably them because they eat raw fish, and then he's like thinks he's not on camera yet, and he's like okay when are we going to start the interview? And they're like oh we've been recording, he's like oh he's like okay well let me get into let me get he's like my face is really sweaty. Let me get get my face better, and he like tries to fix his hair and get his face looking good. He's like, okay, how do I look now? It's just that's a really funny moment because of how he's being racist, and then when he doesn't think he's being recorded, and then when he thinks he's being recorded, he tries to make himself look really nice all of a sudden. That's a great moment though.
Well,
It's just
yeah, but the different types of people that are in that tenement building.
yeah. That's a natural thing for somebody to say in a situation like that when you have but it's just funny though. It's just the whole thing is funny. And not that he ends up helping briefly in some of the later scenes, but
Mhm. I wish I could tell you the names of all these characters, but we just know them as the tenants of the building.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
it's quite natural that way that we don't have this sequence where everyone's introducing who the hell they are. Uh, I think it works better that way because unfortunately, when all hell breaks loose and we start seeing what happens to all these people, it's like, oh shit.
yeah. It does. I mean, those interviews, even though you don't get people's names, you get to see their faces. I mean, the names are probably said, but you get to see their faces. You get to understand kind of who they are. So in the next sequence, when things really start to go and people start to get killed, that you have a better. It's not like just random people. It's people you've seen do an interview. So it helps with the next part when the really it's like when the health inspector shows up is when things start to change because there's the slower down part and then a new guy comes in. He's all in. He's
Has
got
that.
yellow. Yeah, he's got hazmat suit on, like a yellow hazmat suit. He's got gas mask on, and he comes in and then he tells the report. I mean, he tells the cameraman to go away pretty much, and then he goes into the room with the two people, and then they go find a window that they can look in to see what's going on in there, and then that's how it really starts to change the pacing of the film because what happens in that room, like the two people who are tied to the table have turned completely, and then they attack everybody in the room, and then they eventually break out and start going after everybody else.
Well, before we get to what that happens is the Alex and the police officer who have finally turned attack everyone who's in the room with them, and of course Angela and Pablo are recording and seeing what's happening outside the room. But when they attack, all hell breaks loose. And this is inside the workshop area of this tenement building. So
Right, right.
it is locked off with like a garage door type of apparatus. So once all hell breaks loose, they run back into the main building and close that whole garage door
Yeah,
apparatus
yeah,
to kind of keep the infected on the other side of that door. Now that includes the now infected, I think, not police officer and the other guy who got them in there in the first place. I think his name is uh Gillum or Gillum.
Gilliam.
Guillaume. I think it's probably
Yeah.
Guillaume.
Well,
And
that's another thing about the characters' names is they're Spanish names. So
yeah,
it's sometimes like they're probably saying the names, but since we don't really I have like a little took Spanish in high school, but like sometimes you might hear a Spanish name and it just doesn't register to
yeah,
you because we're not that familiar with the language.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I want to point out one camera thing I forgot to mention before all of this that the before the hazmat guy shows up and he tells him to turn the camera off.
Hmm.
And at that point, the camera is on the ground, and the little girl comes and messes with the camera and turns it on, and then gets a close up of her face, just kind of looking into the camera. And then you see Pablo's feet, and you hear some dialogue between him and Angela. That's kind of like a rare moment when the camera does, the camera stopped for a little while, and you actually see some of Pablo talking, and then they take the camera and they're like, oh, it's been on the whole time. When did this thing happen? That's just yeah, it's just an interesting camera moment that I in a time lapse as well.
Yeah, well, it also sets up a little bit more about this little girl who we think is very innocent at all of this, uh, which is it's heartbreaking what happens to her because we've seen her very innocent and she's the only child in this tenant it seems to be. So it's and she's supposed to be sick at this point. Her mother's been holding her most of the movie and she's supposed to be sick. Um, But
Right. A couple of lines the health inspector says during all of this
okay.
that it does kind of set up some of the rules. He says it spreads through saliva.
Mhm.
That's one thing he says. And then another thing he says is reaction time depends on the blood type. So that explains why some people turn immediately, where other people it takes a long time for them to change. So
Yeah,
it's two things they throw in there to just kind of like explain, even though the majority of people change immediately. But apparently the cop and the first cop and the fireman had a blood type that took a long time. But
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
which
as did the little girl, the Jennifer girl, when she finally does change. After the group hears about the whole dog and why the inspector and how everything was quarantined to begin with, I thought that was very interesting the way they tell the story of that.
right,
The
yeah,
dog shows up in a vet with some symptoms of being infected, but then it infects all the other animals at the vet, and they all kill each other. And they had to more or less euthanize them, but they didn't know what this infection was. But they had to read from the was it digital, not the collar, but the tag that they put in pets.
yeah.
Uh,
The chip. They said chip.
the chip. Thank
Yeah,
you. I
yeah.
couldn't remember.
Right,
It
right.
was the chip that led them to the tenant building. And then, of course, when you hear the police presence and the firemen are out there, the first thing they think to do is to quarantine the entire building because they don't know how much this dog's infection has gotten into the entire system there. Um, and that's why they allow a health inspector to get in there. They want to see how bad it is, but they
Yeah.
don't realize exactly what they're dealing with either because they send someone in there in a hazmat suit to begin with, uh,
Right.
to ask questions and to kind of do his own thing in there while he's in there. But
Yeah, and it's yeah, I mean it's good that when that happens because you get a lot of like explanation to some of it's explanation for not, I don't know if you necessarily need it, but it is nice to have some rules kind of set out, and then you get
yeah,
the backstory of the vet. So it was nice to have that stuff, and then that also sets that little girl off suddenly
yeah,
when he finds out that she was her dog, and he goes after her. Apparently she's been effective for a while in a
yeah,
different type of way than everybody else because she reacts like the way most of the people in the second film react. So after you find out what's really going on, but she turns around and bites her mom's nose off, or bites her nose, and then runs up the stairs and runs off.
yeah. Well, I see her infection kind of like what happens to the cop and the fireman. It takes a while, and she, I don't think she was bitten, or if she was bitten, it wasn't like I kind of I've always saw her as like, oh, the dog who's infected was licking her, and
Yeah,
so like what dogs and pets do, and it was really slow with her because she wasn't bit or anything like that. That's why her
yeah, right,
parents think it was tonsillitis. It just showed itself as a very
yeah.
slow this infection. So I was perfectly
It,
fine with that. But when she turns, it's like a drop of a dime, and she's like
yeah.
ferocious.
And she that's why they say it spreads through saliva too. That's why they dropped that
Mhm.
little hint in there so it could explain that. Uh, but yeah, I mean, when she turns, and that's really when everything, once she turns around, bites her mom on the nose, and runs up the stairs, that's when it gets very chaotic for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
But
Well,
they,
go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, and then they take the mom, like some real dumbasses, and they chain her to the stairs because she's been bit.
Hmm.
I guess they technically needed to do it, but it was kind of like the people while this is happening, there's people trying to bust through those garage doors that they're unable to stop, and then they chain her, which makes her very vulnerable to anybody who actually gets through those doors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think they chain her up first, right? Because they think she's infected after being bit by the by her daughter, uh,
yeah,
and
which she
then
probably is. So,
yeah,
but at the
and,
same time, it's pretty inhumane. So,
yeah, because
but
she's not changed yet. But I think after they train her up is when they start hearing the people from the workshop trying to bust through the doors.
yeah, yeah, you're right. And then
Uh,
like while she's chained up, then Angela starts trying to get her out of it,
mhm,
but she's chained up too good. She doesn't have the keys and she can't get her loose.
yeah.
Which which when they finally get through there, they actually go after her and start eating her while she's chained up to the stairs.
Well,
But later on, yeah. But later on, when you see her, she doesn't look like she's too eaten. She looks somewhat whole when they
yeah.
come later. But
Well, for everyone who's listening, yeah, I mean, you've never seen Record. What happened? It's just after this, it goes batshit crazy. The people, the everyone who was infected in the workshop gets into the main building, leaving Pablo, Angela, and oh my God, Manu running up the stairs to get away, and find a safe place as fast as they can, and not just them, but all the other surviving tenants as well, because they end up hiding in the apartment of the one guy that Angela interviewed earlier, which gives them a little bit of safe haven, but not for long because they're passing by other infected people in the building as this is all happening, and so
yeah,
they're
I do wonder in some instances where if which they thankfully don't do for the pacing purposes, but if they were to actually go into one of the apartments and lock themselves in there, I wonder if they would be safe or not.
well, the apartment they go in, remember, they have the hazmat guy, the inspector in there, and he tells them while they're in the apartment that he's been bitten. And so
Right.
they tell him that like he wants to, they should lock him up, because he doesn't have much time left, because he thinks it's going to be a fast change. Um, and then of course that the inspector gets a hold of the owner of the apartment, which I wish I knew his name, but I don't. Forcing uh Pablo and Manu and Angela to flee that apartment because now there's two infected people in that apartment. And the only way they have to go is up.
Yeah.
They're gonna go up. I can't. Shit. I'm trying to think of if at that point do they go to they go to another apartment to find.
Well, yeah. Well, they go back to the old lady's room again,
Is it the old
and
lady
she's
room?
like, yeah, yeah. They go back in there where she was like laying on the floor, but then they go in there and she's not there, which is a pretty cool moment because you see her, you see it like the shot's the same shot, and it's like a pretty cool moment because she go in there and it's like, oh shit, she's not there anymore.
That's right. That's right. That's right. She's not there anymore. Because they're looking for keys. It's her apartment? They're looking for the keys, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is where it goes by so fast. I'm trying to remember each one of the apartments they go in to because to get to the penthouse apartment. So
Well,
there's
really, yeah, that part where the lady's missing actually happens in between, in between, like after the girl bites the mom on the nose,
okay,
and
yeah,
then they go up. This is the part where the cameraman goes upstairs by himself, and they go back into the room, and then the fireman actually fights the old lady. It's a pretty cool fight, and he
okay.
bashes her in the face with something. It's a pretty cool scene. That's the part I was talking about earlier, where the cameraman kind of takes it upon himself to go and with the camera go upstairs without Angela even coming with him. So that's this pretty unique scene.
Yeah, because we also see the Jennifer, the little girl in that apartment as well again.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we see her again in there. I was trying to remember where in the running from one location to the next that scene happened because I wanted to make sure that we noticed that the fact that this is where the little girl runs off to is to the same room that all this shit started off at the first place. Uh,
Yeah. Well, one thing I thought about as it gets to the point where it's kind of following people and they're going real fast and they're fighting stuff, it almost seemed to me like a first person like video game, like Resident Evil or something. It kind of started feeling that way for little pieces of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree with you. I agree with you. Um, but is it that apartment that they get the keys from? They get the keys from there, right? See, I'm always shit.
Yeah, it gets a lot of stuff happens in a small amount of time, but
Yeah, it's small.
they end up having to they come up with a plan to get the keys. That the plan is to go to the basement to get out, but they never go there.
There we go there.
They need the keys to get out from in the basement, but the keys also unlock other rooms. They're forced up
Yeah,
instead of go. They want to go down, but they're forced upwards by the other zombies, and
that's right.
they end up going into like a end up going into what happens at the end, where they go into like the, I guess what would be
Penthouse.
the penthouse
Yeah,
suite.
they missed it. They mentioned it's the penthouse. They get the keys. They're trying to go to the basement originally, but they can't go down and go up. So they go to the penthouse because in theory they've been told that no one's been living in the penthouse for a very long time. But when they get into the penthouse, obviously someone has been living there. Because they start seeing all this shit as though someone has lived there for a long time, but there doesn't seem to be anyone there
Yeah.
now.
I think like before they go into that penthouse, they go to the landlord's room to get the keys, and
Yeah,
that's the one part where I'm thinking this would be a cool place for them just to lock
well,
the door and just stay in there. That would They would have been a lot better off, I think, than what they end up doing. But of course, hindsight's 2020, but they still may have gotten attacked in there. But while they go up to the penthouse, Manu actually gets infected too. But when she goes into the landlord's room, she comes back out. You see that he's turned as well, and everybody's basically leaves. Only Angela and Pablo are the only two unaffected at that point when they go into the final scene in the penthouse.
well, it's really cool to see all this happening when they leave that apartment and they start. You see all the other people on different floors coming up towards them because they're all infected. And it's like
Yeah,
all the infected know that these are like the only two people still left alive, and they all start rushing up towards them, and so that's what prompts them to keep going up to the penthouse. Um, which is interesting because they think they're safe in the penthouse, and they use the keys that they were originally going to use for the basement for these because they're supposed to be the keys for everything, and they get into the penthouse. And then of course that's where we have the big reveal for everything. So I actually want to hear what you think in regards to how all of this unfolds in this penthouse sequence, because this penthouse sequence is crucial to understanding what eventually will happen in the subsequent films. But in this film, it is. Well, what's your interpretation? Well, I
yeah.
mean, what's your impression?
Well, I think it's like I think in my mind when I'm watching it, I'm rejecting what I'm seeing, especially since I saw the American version first. I'm in some ways I'm not. It doesn't seem. I mean, once you know what it is, it makes more sense. But I am definitely like as it's happening, it's like a lot of exposition
Mhm.
dumped on you, and it's cool. But what's cool about it, but there's also some exposition, and it suddenly kind of gets a little like an Evil Dead suddenly. But one thing that happens, they go in there and they see all this laboratory stuff in there, and then they see on like a what is it a board on the wall with a bunch of pictures of different newspaper articles, all about the same girl who's been possessed, like a possessed girl from that they've been trying to exorcise her, but they can't do it,
Mhm.
and then they turn a tape recorder on that they're speaking a language on the tape recorder that we understand because we're seeing the subtitles, but the characters, Angela and Pablo, don't seem to understand whatever language that they're speaking. I'm not sure what it is.
Mhm.
But then you do as an audience member, you hear a lot of stuff on the tape recorder that kind of explains some things. Yeah.
So
Here's a couple of things that it says. I
yeah,
wrote down a few
I
of them.
want you,
Yeah.
yeah.
One thing he says it may soon have a vaccine. Okay, that's something that we already kind of thought it was a contagion. It says the enzyme has mutated into a different strain and now it's contagious. And then she doesn't understand any of this. Um, so that's kind of what you get from the tape recorder. But really, um, you from the pictures of the possessed woman and the tape recorder really kind of tape recorder really more or less sets it up like a contagious thing, a contagious enzyme that which is similar to what we all thought it was, but it ends up being, I guess, a contagious. It's like she's possessed by a demon. This is it's a contagious demon thing. It's that's causing. It's not a zombie at all. It's more like the Evil Dead is what they are. So it's they are possessed rather than infected by a biohazard.
So and I don't know 100% either because I've actually haven't read a lot of articles about what the kind of the unfolding mythology surrounding this franchise actually is. I probably should do that before we get to talking about the other films in the franchise. But my initial interpretations of this film were that this was a botched original possession of a little girl at the time, and someone who is very scientifically minded is trying to find a cure, a scientific cure for a demonic possession. He thinks, or she thinks, that they found maybe a cure, or they have not, but it has mutated. Whatever they've been doing, it has mutated. And then they decide to seal up the room because it can't contain what they created. And unfortunately, we are not told how it infects the dog, and the dog infects everyone else. But we don't know what happened to the guy or person who did this experimenting on this possessed person to begin with either. What we see is we see that Angela and Pablo walk into this penthouse apartment, and then a ceiling trap door opens, and out pops a semi-female figure with elongated limbs, who doesn't.
Well, you missed something there. When the thing pops open, they look up in there, and there's like a little kid in the attic
See,
that they get away from.
yeah, I think it's the same elongated person who just comes down from that little that attic. I don't think there's two things in there. Do you think there were two things in that room? I could be wrong.
No, yeah, this is like because of what happens in the second one. You don't actually see that figure you're talking about until they turn the night vision on the
Yeah, you don't
camera.
see night vision. Yeah. So my the way I saw it, I have to remember the second one. I've actually seen this one and the last one most recently. Um, but with this one, I always thought that the girl in I'm gonna call it the attic for right now.
It's a little kid that's in the attic though. It may be a girl. It's a shaved hair kid. You see him again in the second one a pretty good bit. Not like a ridiculous amount of time, but you do see there's like several more of them up there.
I have to remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen the second one.
Yeah. But
Second,
yeah, I watched it like last night. I was like, I watched this one. I'm like, I'm gonna watch a few minutes of the second one,
oh,
and
did
then
you?
I ended up just watching the whole thing, and I was like, oh man, I can't believe I just watched the whole thing. It's like midnight now, so it's like,
No,
it's,
that's interesting. No, that's good that you say that because I'm going from having not seen the second one in a long time. I just saw the fourth one probably again like three
yeah.
ago. And then I rewatched this one, the first one, which is the one I've seen the most.
But the
Uh,
second one, it deals with a lot with this scene, with the last scene. It actually goes back into that room, and a lot of what's still puzzling after you watch this film is kind of you see more of it. I don't know if it's necessarily explained better, but you kind of understand what happens more. Because at the end, by the end of this movie, you're just kind of like the last sequence of the movie, you are kind of like mind blown, not like in a sixth sense sort of way, but it's kind of like you're just a little confused about what exactly you saw and what exactly it meant.
well, I'll definitely watch the second one now again because of the fact that my and I could have thought about this when the second one originally came out. I can't remember what year that came out. It's been a while since I've seen the second one, but the ideal for me is because I've seen the first one is that the same the character in the attic is the same one that we see that with the elongated
Well, yeah, you may
limbs.
be thinking, yeah, you may be thinking about the American version. That's what happens in the American version.
Oh
But
shit!
here's it's like important because for the second one, here's what like the kid is there, knocks the camera out of their hand, which messes the camera up, and that makes them have to turn the night vision on because
Yeah,
it's the only thing left. And then they start seeing that really crazy character you're talking about, who's played by Javier Botet, who played the Mama character. You ever see the movie Mama?
yeah, yeah. Love that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's played Mama, and he plays this character that is possessed girl, and he's playing a girl, and he's actually got like little boobs and
Yeah.
stuff. So he actually and he's got some kind of diaper on. It's some of this really crazy shit that you see,
Well, that's why I
and
always thought it
how
was. that was just the possessed girl over years and years of being locked up in that building,
Which,
malnutrition
yeah,
and possessed and whatever you want to call it.
yeah.
Uh,
That is what that yeah, that is definitely what it is.
yeah, I
And
just
Pablo's seeing it through the camera, night vision, but Angela can't see it. He can still see Angela, but she's
yeah,
not looking through the night vision to see it.
which I actually like that aspect that they use in this one. Pablo is not. I don't. She never actually gets to see anything through the night vision camera because when it gets knocked out of Pablo's hand and Pablo gets killed, we get to see her, but she doesn't get to see anything because she's in
Well,
darkness.
no, she does pick up the camera though and see
Oh
it
wait, yeah,
briefly. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's like there's so much happens like in such a quick amount of time, but like that's Pablo gets killed and then she picks the camera up. So and that's like the only time she records with the camera, and she turns around, sees it, and then it goes into what is the most iconic shot of both of the movies.
on the poster for Quarantine.
Yeah.
I think it's on the poster for this one too. Actually,
Yeah, I've seen it on some posters. It's on some posters. It's not on all of them, but it's definitely in the trailer. It's like the last shot of the film, and it's always in the trailer.
oh yeah, that's right. Because she does see. It's so brief how long she keeps the camera in her hands before it gets knocked out. And I do like the way that they actually set that up. Camera gets knocked out of her hand, and we can see everything that's going on as the audience, as the camera. Because even though Pablo's dead, we get to see everything still, which is actually quite interesting. Um,
Yeah, I think it's important that she picked the camera up and was able to see what's in the room, because otherwise, like what happens to her, I think it just makes it cooler that she's actually able to see something and be scared about what she saw. Other than that, it would just been all darkness, and she has no idea that there's something that creepy in the room with her. Yeah,
only as audience members would know it. It's creepy for us, but not for her. I think you're right. I think you're right. um,
but
but she gets dragged out of frame of the camera. That's what our last day. Now I have to rewatch it again to make sure, or watch the second one. I think I need to rewatch the second one next, to kind of get an idea about the kid in the attic. Because I just assumed it was the same girl again. But
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It doesn't actually explain in the second one why they're kids. I think maybe he was doing experiments on kids, maybe too, for something like the priest.
shit, I need to
But
rewatch
but
that.
there- but it doesn't explain that in the second one. But maybe I hadn't watched the fourth one, but maybe it explains it in the fourth one. I know the third one's a standalone that doesn't have any of the same characters in it.
Yeah, the third one is the wedding, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't
third
have
one's wedding.
any.
And then the fourth one is when they take the original character Angela on a ship.
Okay.
Apocalypse. Yeah.
But
Uh,
one thing is after she's dragged out of frame, then this is something that I think that they probably found a lot of humor in the filmmakers, because they have some lines on there that they said earlier. She says, "Pablo record everything for fuck's sake," and then it credits her. It's just kind of said over the credits, it's kind of an odd thing that it's there, but it's just kind of like they must have really liked that line, and it kind of adds a bit of a humor to the very last, or a bit of irony, I guess, to the last shot of the film,
yeah.
which we assume the character dies, which he's pulled back like that. It's
Yeah, not exactly what happens when you watch the sequels, but yeah, we assume that she dies at the end of this one. Uh, and then of course, at some point, somebody gets this footage and it becomes a found footage.
yeah, I guess, man. I don't know. I mean, maybe.
The infection
It-
spreads to other ways. Uh,
yeah.
I can't not you got me thinking now. I cannot remember why I do not remember the sequel, the second movie. I remember the third one and I remember the fourth one. I
It
have
has
got
yeah, it has like a doctor that comes in there. They do some kind of creative stuff with the cameras. Instead of just having one camera, they have like four police officers with cameras on their helmets. And they come in there with like kind of a doctor who looks to be a bit of a mad scientist thing. And it actually does different camera points of view with that. And then
oh,
halfway
that's
through it
right.
switches. There's some other kids that end up in there with a camcorder. So they address the camera stuff kind of interesting in that. It's kind of like ridiculous that so many people have cameras to record, but I guess there's no way of telling the story without it.
Oh, that's right. That's
It
right.
did,
I forgot
yeah,
that was the one with the multiple different. Oh my God. And then the third one, they just did away with the whole found footage type of thing. Anyways,
yeah.
um, I
So
like
yeah, I
the
haven't
third one.
seen the
Third one
third or
was fun.
fourth one.
The
But
third
yeah,
one's fun.
yeah.
Third one's fun. I like the fourth one too. I did not see the fourth one when it came out. I saw it several years afterwards because it was so hard for me to find. Um,
Yeah.
I saw the
But now
I
you
saw,
can, yeah,
I saw the
you get
first
all four of
three.
them now. Pretty, yeah,
Yeah, I saw the first three at the theater. Limited release, obviously. The Midtown Art Cinema played all that shit. I've seen a lot of stuff there, which is so great. Um, but I didn't see the fourth one when it came out. I saw that when I think I got like one of those uh different region versions of that movie because I was desperate to see the movie and I found it on
yeah.
these different regions. So that's how I saw the fourth one. So I do need to get a box set with clean copies because none of my copies of the record movies are like clean, regular copies of the movies. They're all like these weird, random, different regions that I find them because I'm so desperate to rewatch them again.
With that, yeah, there's a Scream Factory release that has a box set. It's a really good box set. They're Blu-rays, but this is a type of movie. I don't know if 4K would enhance it or not. Maybe a little bit, but the way that it is shot with the the videos is probably wouldn't. It might help some with the black areas, like the darker areas, maybe. But I just think it looks pretty. I mean, it looks like it is a movie that's supposed to look bad anyway because it's shot with videos.
Well, I kind of take this film as it looks like it's supposed to be a television broadcast show. It's not supposed to look like it's a polished movie. And
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think it works for the medium.
yeah. So, uh, we should definitely talk about quarantine on the show soon, so we can get a perspective on that one as well. I don't think that's on the list. I'm gonna have to add quarantine to the list, see how that works with everybody. But yeah. Any other words you'd like to say about record?
No, I think I got most of my notes in there. That I mean that end though, when you see that crazy slender figure there, that thing is creepy in
Yeah,
that last segment. That thing is like nightmare
because
food right there.
you're not expecting any of that shit. You're not even expecting the whole explanation to have anything to do with some like demonic possession or any of that stuff. These are aspects that you just weren't expecting when you watch this movie because it's set up as like an infectious disease, zombie slash plague type movie. Which
Yeah,
is
and it's really really demon possession. The That's what I questioned earlier about the little girl because I wonder the way that she's kind of acting if she's possessed for a longer period of time than she lets on it because she especially with the way she acts when she looks at the camera by herself, and then later when she finds out when they confront her, she flips and then turns and bites her mom's nose to get away. So it's like it was almost like the way that
react.
she's acting. It seems like it's kind of controlled more than some of the other ones that don't seem like they're controlled because the other ones don't run; they come at them, but she runs and tries to hide.
It's like the thing.
Yeah.
Thing has been found out, and its main thing is survival. So in the little
Yeah.
runs. Uh,
Yeah,
right.
because I mean yeah, I mean she is like yeah, it's odd that she's the only one that tries to get away and go hide somewhere because she must be more important or more demon possessed. The other ones are more mindless zombies.
You were right. I never thought about that, but you were absolutely right. She's the only one that does it. None of the other ones do. The elderly woman, for the most part, until someone interacts with her, she just stands there. When
Yeah,
people interact with her, that's when she reacts.
yeah,
Everyone
yeah,
else, everyone else is batshit crazy. When they're infected, they start running and gunning for people.
yeah. It's like some 28 days later type of zombies seeming. It's when that's happening.
And that makes the question. I want to do this before we get to rating the movie. 28. So 28 days later was 5 years before this. I want to see if there's
Yeah,
like a correlation between the two films, and there probably could have been. There could have been some influence
yeah.
between.
I think the 28 Days Later zombies that was definitely new when that happened, and it seems like
Oh yeah,
they kind of followed suit for a little while with a lot of the zombie movies after that. And I think this was doing that, but I think there are different layers to this which are never explained, like that little girl being possessed for a long period of time, and then there's the other people becoming zombies, and maybe like the one guy says, depending on the blood type, it may be different because he knows about the blood type because of the dogs.
yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, there's some things that seem different, maybe inconsistent, but it might be on purpose. There might be some purpose to some of that.
Yeah, well, we have to delve into the second, third, and fourth films more intricately, deeper to get into all the intricate details of what the filmmakers are trying to accomplish with this franchise. Because originally, for me, I would never have thought that they could ever make a franchise out of this
Right.
film, but obviously, because it was so popular, they kept going.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like with the American version of Quarantine, they don't follow like they don't go with the same story. It kind of goes on to new people instead of reincorporating the same location again. They get out into an airplane and it gets on an airplane, kind of like they do with the third one of this at a wedding. But
But
I don't.
yeah, I don't remember much good about Quarantine 2 Terminal. I just remember seeing it once. That's the only one I have only seen once. I don't remember anything about it, unfortunately.
It does have Tom Tone in it though. You remember seeing him in it, right?
I
It's
don't
because we
remember seeing.
know him.
Oh, dude,
He's
I
in it.
saw I saw that once just to say I've
Yeah.
seen it, and then I completely forgot about it afterwards. I would
But
have.
he's like the paraplegic man, and he doesn't talk. He's in it. He's pretty showcased pretty well in it.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh God. I'm not going to mention that until we do a episode of Quarantine 2, which I don't know how soon that's going to be unless you want to do.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I mean, we
All
still
right.
gotta.
All right. I want to thank you, Dave, for joining us in this conversation about Record from 2007. From everyone here at Cub Something Wicked Entertainment, we want you to know that what we do is we rate these movies between 1 and 5, 1 being poor, 5 being amazing. And what we love to do is we take an object, a saying, a something from out the film to rate the movie by. So with that in mind, Dave, what do you rate this film, and what is it? What object, what saying, what thing are you going to rate it based on?
Well, I'm gonna go with the camcorder, and I'm gonna put it at 4 camcorders.
Okay. I'm actually going to do 4 too, but I'm going to do 4 infected dogs called Max. Since Max 1, Max 2, Max 3, Max 4. So there you go.
Yeah. There's a bunch
Uh,
of other infected dogs too that aren't named, but
yeah, there's
luckily we don't see any of that. That would have been terrible to see those dogs infected.
no,
It's,
yeah, you know what? It would have been terrible to see those dogs infected. I'm glad we don't see that, and that's all kind of the background story that we're just told about, which is very interesting. And we never know how the dog is infected to begin with. But that being said, leaving that stuff in the background is crucial to enjoying this fast-paced film that's very lean on its runtime because it's barely 80 minutes long. It's not even 80 minutes long. This is a lean movie. So it starts, and once it starts, it never stops until, the camera falls on the ground and turns off. Uh, with that, I want to thank you all for listening to us on this program, Conversations in Horror. We hope you've enjoyed this episode in which me and Dave Watkins talked about the movie Record from 2007. Please make sure to check out previous episodes that we have done. We have touched upon a lot of great movies, a lot of great foreign movies, and hopefully you have been paying attention to our show this month as we delve deep into other foreign language films, as we will continue to do throughout this month. From all of us here, have a pleasant day, and please make sure to check out our other podcast, Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors, which checks in to all of the amazing Hammer Studio films that they have produced. You're going to enjoy that one if you love classic horror films. So from all of us, please have a great day, and we will see you on our next episode. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken House Pictures.